evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6 o'clock as per my watch. So, Heather, please.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam.
Present.
Commissioner Yates.
Present.
Commissioner Sanders.
Here.
Commissioner Ferris.
Here.
And Chairman Cox is absent, so 4 present, we have a quorum.
Can you please all rise for the pledge? Mr. Parsons, can you please lead us in the pledge?
Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam.
Yes.
Commissioner Yates.
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders.
Yes.
Commissioner Ferris.
Yes.
4 ayes, motion carries.
Next item is approval of minutes of June 27, 2017. If you have all reviewed, so if you have any questions, otherwise if I have a motion, that would be great.
All motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Yates.
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders.
Aye.
Commissioner Ferris.
Aye.
4 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. Public comments of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the Commission on matters that are within the Commission's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Planning Commission may not take action on an item that does not appear on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name.
Good evening. My name is Dick Schultz. I live at 324 West Feldspar Avenue. I've lived there for about 40 years now, I guess. The reason I'm here is I would very much like to construct a carport on the west side of my garage to do 2 things. Number 1, to keep the summer heat off my car. Number 2, to provide electricity. I would like to build that, or at least have the cover of that thing made out of solar panels. What's killing me is the 5-foot clearance requirement. I cannot understand where that comes from or why it's there. If I could, and I also do not think it should be in there. I think the what do they call it? Yeah, the yard requirements should not include that. They need to have another restriction on there, another constraint. I do not plan on having anything combustible on that thing, so I do not see where the 5-foot requirement comes from.
Meaning the car that you'll,
No.
over here.
Okay.
the car that you're going to park, you plan to park there is not running combustibles?
I do plan to park my car there, yes.
Okay.
Thanks for your observation, sir, and we are sorry for the inconvenience, and the staff will look into that. Sir, do you have any comments?
Yes, we, as you know, we have discussed, I think our planner has discussed this with you a little bit, and there you do have an opportunity to file for a variance, and there is an application, unfortunately, an application fee and process that's required to do that to allow you to get the 0 lot line, we call it 0 lot line clearance that you're asking for. The Planning Commission has and Council has allowed that in one case previously, so you do have that option, sir, to do that. The code is very specific, however, on the setback requirements on the structures. That is a health and safety requirement. Primarily, one of the reasons for that is a fire setback issue. It's for clearances between buildings for fire purposes is one of the reasons for that code, but there are several. if you'd like, the staff can do some more research for you to determine on the health and safety building code reasons for that. And we could give you that more detail.
I would
But, you
appreciate
do
that.
have the option of filing for a variance.
That's correct. I don't think that I should have to file for variance because I think the regulations should not have that requirement in it. I did check with the fire department, both locally and in Bakersfield, and they said it's not a requirement for them.
Okay. The other option you have, if you feel that you don't want to go through the variance, is to go to I'd recommend that you go to the city's infrastructure committee meeting. And it's regularly scheduled on the website. I don't know when the next, do we have somebody from infrastructure? I think.
Yeah, we're actually going to be meeting this Thursday. So
Okay.
I'm very elusive. We'll be meeting this Thursday
All right.
at 4:00. Oh shoot! You know what? It was canceled this month. The next one's going to be in August.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't have a quorum for this month, so it's going to be canceled.
And the infrastructure committee would be the one that would look at a regulation or what we call a code change requirement in terms of that, because it deals with health and safety issues in terms of building as well as planning. So that would be the place to also, if you're looking for, just a general, we shouldn't have this code at all, period. The problem is that carports aren't treated any different than structures. So if you have a carport versus a house, the same rule would apply. You're not allowed to have a house that way or a building that way. So it's just considered an extension of the house, no different than a structure. So just so you know.
Okay. And where will I find out about the infrastructure meeting again? That'll be on.
It's on the city website, and it's announced. I tell you what, sir, if you give us, I think, Paul, do we have his address and information yet? So we'll get that to you directly,
Would
sir.
appreciate it.
If we have your contact information, I'll make sure you get the information on it.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming and asking about it, though.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing, conditional use permit 17-01, a request by Crossroads Community Church for the property located at 128 South Silver Ridge Street, APN number 080-133-11 for a temporary transitional housing facility. Staff report, please.
Yes, this item came before the Planning Commission as a continuation, again, of a public hearing that was held at the last Planning Commission. And it is a request by Crossroads Church to receive a conditional use permit again for a transitional temporary housing facility. At that meeting, the church asked that the item be continued so that they had an opportunity to talk to the residents within the 300-foot radius, and the residents interested and showed concerns relative to the use of the house, if you remember, and who was going to be in it, and some of the questions they had. I believe the staff provided you with the 300-foot listing, and we also provided you with the names of the people who had comments. I believe the church has had meetings with those folks, and we have the church here to answer some of those questions, and staff is still still making the recommendation to continue with approve the conditional use permit, but let's allow our representative from the church to speak if you so wish.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dion, and yes, as you mentioned, we did have an opportunity to meet with the neighbors who expressed some concern, and were able to address their concerns and answer any questions they had. I am pleased to say that after having that conversation, they did respond back to us. The ones who were most concerned responded back favorably. They did agree to allow this to go ahead and go forward, and so they're willing to see how this is, going to go. So we're very thankful for that. And in light of that, Crossroads has also just made the decision that because we do want to continue to have really good relationship with our neighbors and our community, that we've invited that particular neighbor into participating with us in the supervisory board, and they could then therefore be the neighborhood representation. So that invitation has been offered to them, and so hopefully that will work out. So now I guess it's just up to city approval. That's where we are, if you gentlemen have any questions.
And I don't see anybody else here that has any concerns from the, I'm not seeing anybody else. I guess we don't have any more complaints. How about that?
That's
Ms.
yay.
Sanders, we really appreciate you talking this out with the neighbors and coming up with an amicable solution. So that's really appreciated, and we all feel that what you are doing is very useful to the community. I think my fellow commissioners would agree with me on that.
Thank you.
The other thing I might want to point out, just got to be the practitioner, is that to the Plan Commission, is that the conditional use permit is just that, a conditional use permit. So if there was a significant issue that was brought up either by our own police department or local neighbors or something else, there's an option eventually to terminate this conditional use if there's a conflict later on. So it's not forever and ever and ever and ever. And so, again, the staff recommendation would be to approve the conditional use as submitted, and appreciate the efforts of the church in doing so and being concerned with that. And we worked well with this church to get this done, by the way. They're very cooperative with the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sanders.
Okay, is that it?
You
Yay.
may be seated.
Thank you.
So I think we had a thorough discussion at the last meeting, so if I have a motion, we would entertain that.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
So this counts as this, no, you have to have 2 public hearings, right? Does this count as the second one, or?
The continuation
This is
did,
the
yes, and we would
continuation.
consider this as the second. Technically, we're in position to be able to approve it.
That, okay, that's what I was
Yeah,
thought
just
for sure we
on the
could,
technical
so-
side, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm actually pretty floored that you would allow, members of the neighborhood to be on your approval board. I think that's awesome. That to me shows, going above and beyond in allowing that. So, yeah, I'm good. I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
I'll second.
17-1.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Yates,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders,
Aye.
Commissioner Ferris.
Aye.
4 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is discussion and other action items. Do we have any other action items?
We do not have any other action items tonight. I would like to comment that Mr. Cox is unfortunately not here tonight. He has a medical problem, and I'm fairly familiar with that, considering it's the same procedure I had done before relative to the insertion of a device for heart condition issue. And I just staff wants to make sure the board's aware of why he's not here, and wish him well, and hope that everything goes well. My understanding is it's not a very simple, he has to go back in and he has another operation planned, I believe. So it's been an ongoing problem. So I just wanted to make a note of that, if I could, and wish him well. In terms of discussion items, the council, the staff, I can either put this in the staff items, or I can give it to you now since we're discussing it. And I'd like to introduce it as a discussion item. The staff approved, there was 2 staff actions taken this month. One is for some of you may call it the Starbucks project. It is on North China Lake Boulevard, and that was the conversion being suggested of the no, this is not Pizza Hut. This is the Starbucks conversion. And I'll give you a copy of the, I'll pass this out to the chair, the commission, just the staff, the letter that we sent out, just so you know what we're doing. I'd like to keep you informed of what we're doing as well. This was simply a parking lot. We also did another project for in front of the that we approved in front of the medical office building there, in front of between the hospital and the office building and the hotel and all that complex there. off of China Lake. They asked for the addition of a parking lot in that project, a simple parking lot with about, I think it was 24 spaces, 23 spaces, something like that. Simple process, nothing elaborate. So we didn't feel we needed to, that it was something the planning commission to waste his, his time on, valuable time on, and there was no, our reasoning behind when we're bringing you stuff and when we're not is if there's a process that requires a decision to be made that is, I don't want to say arbitrary, I'm trying to think of the word, but basically, there's a choice.
Unprecedented.
Beg pardon?
Like an unprecedented decision.
Yeah, or a one that says, you got to pick a choice. There's a choice there, both of which are good. It's a policy choice. It's a decision, like if you want it to be green or red, that kind of thing, where either one is right, as opposed to a parking lot where, the code is very specific. It identifies that. And what we'd be asking you for effectively is, do you want the parking lot to be black or black? It would not be sort of like you can have your Model T in black or black. It doesn't really matter. There's no, I'm trying to think of the word, but basically, there's no selective decision-making. In the case of this, in the case of Starbucks, it was strictly parking lot again. They're redoing, the parking lot actually expanded from when they originally came to us. They expanded into doing the entire parking lot. It included some drainage issues. I talked to our engineer. He identified some issues associated with engineering, that they have to have a drainage on site and some other things that you'll see in my letter. Those came from our engineering department also. Other than that, there wasn't anything, it's an existing building. They're not changing the building. They're not changing anything else. So it was a pretty simple one to do relative to, it basically related to our code and parking lot code and that sort of stuff, which is pretty direct. So we just chose to do it this way. If we have anything that has any sort of decision-making in it in terms of as I put it, the red and green kind of choice. Do you want it here? Do you want it that? Is it a conditional use permit? Is it something else that we would bring that automatically to Planning Commission? Other thing is size. If it's a larger project, then we would bring it to you as well. So I'm just giving you some updates. I just like to see, like you see what we give out to as a staff level correspondence, and so you see it in the future. You know what it is. And we'll report what we did every month so that you can see what we're doing. So we're not just doing it in the dark without anybody knowing about it.
Thank you.
And so that's the only discussion item I had, is we're just letting you know we're doing staff reports as we go along.
Good deal. So this is the old Pizza Hut location?
Yes, that is the old
Yeah.
Pizza Hut location. Interestingly enough, Starbucks is going into the old Pizza Hut location.
Okay.
For your information, Starbucks is not leaving its existing location. It's going to have a new store, another Starbucks. And yes, it is the third or fourth one, depending on your definition in town, at Starbucks. And Pizza Hut now has an application we were reviewing. They are going into the shopping center in front of the bowling alley. Originally, their plan, we were under the impression at least, their plan was to do a takeout, this is Pizza Hut, takeout facility down there. And much like some of the other stores we have, Papa John's, Pizza, Caesar's Pizza, and so on, and Domino's. And it turns out, however, that they are actually going to be putting a sit-down restaurant in there. So that's we're looking at whether we need to expand that scope or not. Again, it's an existing structure. It's a TI kind of thing, driven thing, or intended improvements. Some parking lot changes, some particularly ADA requirements, and we're on that now. We're working on that project. The other project that we're looking at right now is Arby's is looking at relocating, and we're looking at, we have some interesting issues associated with Arby's, associated with, they want to drive through. The location they picked is the old, the Indian restaurant or Chinese restaurant, or it's been 4 or 5 things else on California and Ridgecrest Boulevard. The interesting thing is the original design that we had planned, one of those, I will tell you this because it's kind of a neat story about me, because I'm the one that did it. But basically, a funny story. is we were looking at stacking on that project, and if you think about the store, they wanted a drive-through. There's a drive-through to exist on that building, on the south side of the building. There's a little driveway there, and there's a little driveway. So we were looking at they wanted to locate there, and maybe potentially locate there and put the drive-through there. Well, we couldn't have the drive-through coming from China Lake Boulevard because there's not enough stacking room, if you think about that. It's just the example we go through. It's kind of a fun exercise to go through in your mind. So because there'd only be about 2 cars, the ability to stack before you run into there. And I don't want cars sitting out on China Lake Boulevard trying to turn in to go into the RBs to get their food because it's right there at the intersection. So we were thinking, well, we'll just change the direction and we'll pull around the other side of the building and go out on China Lake Boulevard as you exit and make the drive-through that way. And we were working on that and all that. And then one of my engineers walked up to me and said, that'll be the most interesting drive-through you see because the drive-through will be on the passenger side. And I went, oh, no. So we're working on changing that now. Unless you guys think. Yeah, we thought about the vac too, but we thought perhaps the RB sandwich might look a little different after it went through a vacuum.
That's for all our British visitors that come
There you
in,
go.
Australian visitors.
You go to the other side. There you go. So we are working on that. So those are just some of the projects we have in-house. The other disappointing project I have, sort of disappointing to me, is I'm just keeping you up to date, and I'm sort of doing my staff report right now, but the other piece we're working on is the Red Rock project, the apartment project we looked at. That's very involved, and they asked for us to remove it from the review right now because we wanted to change. They wanted to do the whole project at once, approval, and they needed to have a land change and a zone change and so on. And we've run into some environmental issues that staff's trying to resolve relative to. We got some letters from other state agencies asking for mitigations. So we're having to go back through and look at that. Lahontan and Fish and Wildlife have concerns now relative to its position next to the channel. And we have some other issues. What I'm trying to tell you is that, unfortunately, this may be one of those projects that is in the planning process, entitlement process, a whole lot longer than staff would like to see. We may be at it for 4 or 5 months, frankly, by the time we get everything done, unfortunately, as I'm projecting now.
It's a good project, though.
Oh, it's a good project and worthwhile, and we certainly don't want to discourage it, or we'd like to, staff-wise, we'd like to support, move it along, and be as fruitful as possible. But we got some technical problems we're going to have to go through. And CEQA is a great thing, except it can extend you out dramatically. So that's where we're going with that. Anyway, any questions on the staff report that you see? I have one if anybody else needs one. One more with me at least. And that's the end of that's the only item I had for, and that's
I
not
just
really
have one
discussion, but-
question. Do you have any updates on Walmart building or Staples building or?
Since you're asking for an ED update, I'll give you that. The planner doesn't know a thing, but the ED guy does.
Yeah.
On the Walmart building, we are currently working with, Tractor Supply's in place and operating, and all the improvements are made, so it's a complete project. The Walmart, we have people very interested in the lots, and we have offers for the lots in front of the Walmart, new retailers. And the only problem we have right now is we're waiting for council to approve the final map on that, parcel map on that, so they can literally sell the land. And then we can announce, we'll do the announcement of who those retailers are. But I can tell you that a couple of the lots are already being discussed. Prices haven't been determined yet, so on. So it's still up in the air a little bit. But great deal of interest on those lots down there. The old Walmart building, we have one other project we're working on to maybe take another third of it. So hopefully, if that comes together, we should be able to, by the end of summer, have some commitments and you'll have some real good ideas where they're going with that. But it's the existing building, new tenants in the existing building. So,
Before you go, at least.
well, at least I'll be able to tell you that we're working on it by then. And that's, we have some other ED stuff that's going on, but those are the main things on that end of town.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Any other action items from commissioners? Nothing. No, thank you. Next item is commissioners' items, comments, committee reports. Mr. Faris.
I can report that the Quality of Life Committee, with direction from Lindsay Stevens, we opened the indoor playground, and since June, mid-June, they've had about 400 visitors. And I think that's it. That's it.
We also, economic development, Mr. Sanders. Okay.
Yeah. So we met, when did we meet? Was that last week?
Last Thursday? Tuesday, I can't remember. Thursday, I think it was.
Something like that, yeah.
Last week.
We discussed the ICSC conference and just some of the fruits of, of us going there. I guess we had several very good meetings, upwards to 40 some meetings with different retailers at that convention. So let's see, kind of going off of memory, what else did we discuss?
We discussed the University of the extension project where they wanted to move in.
That's
to
right.
Offices here.
Yeah, it was a small business
Development is development.
SDBC.
SDBC, yeah. So I think we made some pretty good headway there as well. I think that was the major topics. So
Correct.
that's all I have to report.
Commissioner Yates.
Oh, city org
Thank you.
was, two of the main issues that we spoke about. One was it was nice to see we had the city-in chief right now, chief of police was there and gave us a report on how many arrests had been made in the previous year that was related to curfew law. Because we had, it was one of our agenda items in dealing with the curfew law, and should we look at changing the hours as a city? So the report was very, very useful, and there was essentially no parents were complaining. We had, in the tenure of, Chief Strand? In his tenure, he said he only had 2 complaints since he'd been chief, and they were from the same person.
It's from a
So-
teenager?
No, it was a parent, a concerned parent. The other issue that we talked about was we also discussed parking laws and
On street parking.
street
On street
parking.
park.
And I heard that both these issues were raised again at council. So, but I think that we resolved both of those issues. I know one of the parking issue still had to go before council because it was something that should have been changed years ago. But
Yeah, and it was written as 10 days, but it was never approved. So they
Right.
were going to revisit that and remove that 10 days thing.
right, and
Go
then
back
we
to-
were required by state law that our law had to match the city ordinance, the ordinance law. So,
City ordinance says 72 hours.
so, but those were the 2 main issues, and I think we resolved them at the committee level. So that's a good thing.
Thank you,
And I don't
Commissioner
remember
Yates.
anything else. You remember?
We talked about sales tax.
Internet sales tax is going to be on one of our agenda items for our next meeting.
And then increase in share of property taxes. So that was an item briefly.
The missing
discussed.
property tax item,
Yeah,
yeah.
because other cities have like 7% tax, I think, but we get only like 5% or something like that. So
Some of them actually go up to 12 and
So,
15%.
Yeah.
The average, I think, is at 7%.
7%,
Yeah.
yeah, where it's
We're
5.
on the low end of that.
And
So
some people,
city wants to-
And nobody can quite yet determine how we ended up at 5. That's the mystery.
Yeah, that's what city manager is going to look into, and we'll talk about it next time. So,
Let me get an answer. He's got a detective force. No, never mind. That's right.
so those are the committees. I don't know if we missed any other committees or.
I'm sure there's other committees, but the primary ones that affect us are the ED, the org, oh yeah, we didn't have any report on the infrastructure, which is also an important committee for us.
Yeah, infrastructure,
I
met,
think it's
it was
getting
about a month ago. Since
Right,
we
and
met,
it's getting ready, as they said, they canceled this one, and they're going to
Yeah.
meet next time.
Thank
we'll
you.
get along then.
Commissioner comments. Mr. Farris, do you have any comments to make, sir?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Mr. Sanders?
I just have one question for Mr. Parsons.
Yes, maybe.
Do we have an issue, or do we have a plan for the city planner, the part-time?
Yeah, I was
planner
going
or
to.
whatever
I was
that
going to report, if you allow me, on staff. When I do my
Oh,
staff
sure.
report on that, I'll be glad to give you what's going on there.
Excellent. I have no comments then. Thank you.
Commissioner Yates?
Yes, I am very, very proud of the way that Crossroads Community Church handled that issue with the residents complaining about what they were trying to do. I really enjoyed seeing the church and the community working together to provide something that's very needed. And I understood their complaints. They had real complaints, but for the church to sit down with them and involve them in that process, my hat is off to them. And I wish Pastor Bill was here right now, but hopefully he could hear this back at some point. But great job. Great job.
Great. Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you. I don't have any comments except that I just want to thank Paul Leonard for his hard work in helping Mr. Parsons put the packages together for the planning, and the hard work done by Mr. Culp, our city engineer, taking care of things. I know there might be some backlogs, and I really appreciate your hard work in that area. Thank you so much.
No, they're sitting around playing tiddlywinks when they're doing that. No, they are very, very much backlogged, and I appreciate their efforts as much.
Okay, let's move on to staff items.
Yeah, I wanted to report real quickly on the progress relative. As you know, I have requested to retire someday soon. Actually, my wife has insisted, and I have requested. The original plan was to actually be this Thursday to be my last day in terms of being here working. And at the request of the new city manager, I've agreed to extend to any time that he'd like to serve me. I will serve as long as he would like, up until September 21st. So basically, you've still got me, as they say in the whatever movie that was. They just keep dragging me back. So I will be continuing the process for a while. In terms of the recruitment, I believe my city manager, and our HR department has actively recruited. They received some people, some applications in, and have done an interview panels, cut it down, and the city managers now, interim city managers now reviewing the final candidates with the objective of trying to come to a conclusion and get somebody on board in the very near future, so we have some time to cross-train and get involved. We do have, like was mentioned earlier, we do have the department could not, and I tell you the truth, I couldn't function. I'm sure the other new person will not, without the help of Paul, Heather, and Lauren in those various positions. We do work as a team, and they do an excellent job of working as a team to make these things happen. These documents don't go rolling out, and they don't just fall off the tongue. They're just not that kind of document. So we do intend, and I believe that the city manager also plans to ask for some support from different places, whether it be a consulting firm, which we talked about earlier, or asking the county to help aid, or in some other way provide some aid and assistance as we go through the transition period so that we don't end up with a backlog and continue the process as quickly as we can. I will be, during my period here, trying to clean up and make sure, and frankly, that's part of the reason I'm going to try to get many of the staff things out as we can in between now and the next staff meeting, planning commission meeting, so that we can get as many things off the desk as we can, that we can allow, that we feel is reasonable and won't impact you at all. So anyway, that's what we're after on the staff level, frankly, we're getting a lot of applications in. They are for interesting projects, not big ones, not huge ones. They're just the routine parking lot here, sign here. We've got a couple where we've got conflicts between code sections that we have to work through and stuff like that. But I think we'll accomplish a lot during the next few weeks. But that's where we are, unless you have some questions specifically. Did I answer your questions, sir? Hopefully.
You did.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna miss you, but I'm glad we still have you. So, but
They keep dragging me back, so what can I tell you?
we'd
Yeah.
be in a bad spot if we didn't have any transition period, I think. So,
It'll all happen. Lauren, you got a report you'd like to make?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I thought I'd give you an update on some projects that are about to occur. I've just got a schedule today for one of the projects, and that's the little unpaved portion of Bowman Road adjacent to the old Walmart structure. It's just due westerly of China Lake Boulevard. It's at 2 lanes that we're going to be paving that. The contractor has announced his tentative date of starting construction on that on August 3rd. We'll be having a pre-construction meeting on that. We're tentatively setting a pre-construction meeting either this coming Thursday or the following Tuesday. But that project will be starting very tentatively on August 3rd. Also, just got word from the Searles Valley Water District. You may know that the City Council is going to take on the paving of the Senior Center parking lot, and there's a water line that the Searles Valley needs to replace in that parking lot. They've successfully awarded a contract, and they are moving to try to start that project next week, and their intent is to try to do that during late evening hours so that the operations and parking there in the parking lot wouldn't be disrupted. We've got some grant applications that are going to be going before the City Council on August 23rd. We've got 4 CMAQ applications and 1 RSTP application for street improvement projects. So got quite a bit in the middle right now. But that's the latest and greatest on some of our projects.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Can
Any
I-
questions for Mr. Carr?
Yes. Lauren, if you'd be so kind, if you know, where are we with the widening of downs near the charter school?
Yeah, that's going to be one of our RSTP applications. The RSTP application for the east side of Downs, we have the authorization to proceed with the design on the east side. We've gone through the environmental process. We're currently in the design right now. We should have 60% plans before I was told I would have them this week, but I have yet to see them. But we should have 60% plans here relatively soon. Now, that is an RSTP project as well, the east side of Downs. We are intending on applying this year's RSTP project for the west side of Downs. Mm-hmm. So I would say that we're moving right along. We have made a request to Southern California Edison at the City Council's direction to seek the updated invoice and agreement for the relocation of the poles. We've set a date with Southern California Edison in which we would like the poles to be out of our way, and we've set the end of February, 1st of March as our target date for the poles to be relocated. That, in effect, would allow us then to proceed with the westerly side of Downs.
Okay, so not any time before the new school year.
Right. Now, after we get the design completed, we're required to have a request for authorization for funding for construction prior to January 31st of 18 into Caltrans. Once we get the authorization to proceed with our construction, we'd be starting somewhere in, I'd say by the time we go out to bid, somewhere around that March date. So that's why we've told Southern California Edison to try to get those poles out of the way somewhere around the end of February, 1st of March.
Thank you.
It'd be in alignment with our timeline to be able to go out to bid and have a contractor starting work.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Thank you.
And that's expediting a project. 18.
Okay, if there are no other items to discuss, nothing from the staff?
Yeah, one other comment. Our speakers work for Planning Commission, the mics worked, the system worked, and I want to point out, that's because we're the Planning Commission and we're the best. No, thank you very much.
They haven't been working good.
There
They
is
didn't work at all in planning and council meeting.
Oh,
Good job to the IT department. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, if there are no other comments, adjourn the meeting at 6:41.
that's a record.
Yes, because I expected 6:45, so I'm.
Mm.